30 years ago, something happened that still sends shivers down the spines of those who remember. A class of high school students, 32 teenagers, and their teacher, vanished in broad daylight during a routine school trip. No signs, no clues, just an empty bus in a quiet roadside parking lot. For 5 long weeks, people feared the worst. But then, without warning, they were found. Not in a remote forest, not in a different country, but locked inside a rusted, sealed shipping container dumped behind an abandoned factory, miles from where they had vanished. Every one of them was alive, but not the same. They wouldn't speak. They wouldn't look anyone in the eye. Something had broken them deeply. And to this day, not a single one has ever told the truth about what really happened inside that container. But now, someone is finally ready to talk. This is their story. It started as a normal day. May 12th, 1995. The morning air in Fall Ridge, Oregon, was clear and brisk, the kind that promises summer but still clings to spring. At 8:04 a.m., a school bus pulled out of East Fall Ridge High School's parking lot, carrying 32 juniors and their homeroom teacher, Mrs. Abigail Heaton. They were headed for a routine trip to the Crestfield Nature Reserve, an annual outing, more of a tradition than an educational experience. Most of the students were excited. It was a chance to skip a day of classes, hike a little, maybe flirt, maybe sneak off with friends. It was just that kind of trip. At 9:15 a.m., the driver, 61-year-old Richard Miller, pulled into a rest stop off Route 7. It was a well-used stop, picnic tables, a public bathroom, and a small vending machine area. Nothing strange, nothing dangerous. By 9:40 a.m., the bus was empty. Everyone had gotten out to stretch, use the bathroom, and hang around. By 9:52 a.m., everyone was gone. Every single person, students, teacher, and driver, vanished without a trace. Their belongings were still there, phones, backpacks, even half-eaten snacks. The bus engine was still warm. The keys were in the ignition. But no one was there. The investigation kicked off fast. By noon, police had arrived. State troopers blocked the rest stop, and K-9 units swept the nearby woods. Helicopters combed the tree canopy. They found nothing, no tracks, no signs of struggle, not even a single footprint leading away from the pavement. It was like they had stepped off the face of the earth. Back in town, the families were told. Janet Tillman, whose twin daughters were on the trip, collapsed in her driveway when she heard. She would later spend 2 weeks in the hospital, unable to speak. The media went wild. National headlines called it the field trip disappearance. The FBI got involved on day 2, still nothing. No ransom demands, no footage, no suspicious witnesses. The rest stop's only security camera was broken. By day 7, the story had become more than news, it was legend. Meanwhile, in Fall Ridge, strange things began to happen. On day 9, the janitor at the school found that classroom 3B, their homeroom, was ice cold when he entered at 6:15 a.m., even though the heater had been running. He said he heard a scratching sound from inside the lockers, but when he opened them, they were empty. By day 13, rumors had started. Some students claimed they saw someone who looked like one of the missing kids standing in the forest behind the school. But when staff went to check, there was no one there. One freshman swore he saw Mrs. Heaton standing in the hallway at 3 a.m., but she was still missing. Police chalked it up to trauma and hysteria. The town wasn't convinced. Then came day 18. Detective Marcus Hale, leading the investigation, got a tip from a trucker who said he saw a girl standing barefoot at mile marker 224 around midnight. It was pouring rain. She didn't say a word. When he slowed down, she vanished. Hale drove to the location himself. It was about 12 miles north of the rest stop. He found no one, but he did find something odd. A blackened footprint burned into the gravel. Just one, human-sized, like someone been standing there with bare feet on fire. He didn't file it in the official report. By day 28, the country was starting to move on. Most believed the kids had been kidnapped and likely killed. Others suspected occult or human trafficking, but there was no proof, no bodies, and no leads. Then day 35 arrived. At 2:14 p.m., a maintenance worker named Kevin Drover called 911 from the south end of Linemore Industrial Park, a long-abandoned factory zone outside Fall Ridge. He He had gone to check out a vandalized storage unit when he noticed a foul smell coming from an old rusted shipping container stacked behind an overgrown fence. The container wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't marked, it had no serial numbers, and it was sealed with 3 padlocks. Police arrived 20 minutes later. What they found inside would never leave them. All 33 people were in that container, alive. They were curled in fetal positions, silent, eyes wide open. All of them were wearing the same clothes they had on when they vanished. None had eaten or drunk anything in 5 weeks. Yet none were malnourished. Not visibly, anyway. The interior of the container had strange marks scratched into the walls, symbols, but none that matched any known alphabet. They didn't scream. They didn't talk. They just stared. None of them would speak, then or later. When taken to the hospital, doctors noted a disturbing pattern. All of them had the same small wound on their inner wrists, like a circular puncture. Blood tests were clean. No drugs, no trauma, no signs of restraint. When shown pictures of their own homes, they didn't respond. When their families visited, most didn't even react. It was like their minds had been hollowed out. Mrs. Heaton was found clutching a folded piece of notebook paper. It was blank, except for a single sentence written in black marker. It read, "You were warned. Never ask where we went." Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from today and what time you are currently watching this video. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. The container was hauled away within hours. Forensics worked around the clock, scanning every inch, scraping samples from the walls, and checking for fibers, fingerprints, or anything else that might make sense of it. But what they found only raised more questions. No fingerprints, none from the students, none from the teacher, none from anyone, as if every surface had been wiped perfectly clean, except for the scratches on the walls. The symbols weren't just scratches. They were deep carvings, dug in with something sharp, like metal. One was repeated more than any other, a jagged circle with 3 lines crossing through it. FBI analysts couldn't link the markings to any language, gang symbol, or code. They were just there. Back in Fallridge, the hospital kept the survivors isolated. Doctors came and went, whispering behind clipboards and tight lips. The students were silent, no screaming, no cries for help, no confusion. They just stared ahead, sometimes blinking, sometimes not, breathing, eating small bites of food when coaxed, but never speaking until day 6. That morning, a nurse named Rosalie Mays was monitoring vitals in room 4 when she heard a voice behind her. "Don't open it again." She spun around. It was Claire Bennett, one of the missing girls. Claire was sitting up in bed, eyes wide, arms wrapped around her knees. Her voice was flat, her stare colder than anything Rosalie had ever seen. Claire didn't say another word that day. But her sentence changed everything. "Don't open what?" Detective Marcus Hale was losing sleep. He'd been with the Fallridge PD for 15 years, and nothing had ever gotten under his skin like this. He kept thinking about the burned footprint, about the symbols, about that single sentence on the folded paper. And now Claire's warning. He requested access to the students. The FBI said no, but Hale was stubborn. So on day 8, he pulled strings with someone he trusted, an old friend named Dr. Luis Mendez, who happened to be working in the same hospital. That night, Mendez snuck him into the secured wing under the excuse of consulting on psychological evaluations. The moment Hale stepped into the hallway where the students were kept, he felt it. Something was off. Not spooky, just heavy, like the air was thicker. Like every breath took effort. He made his way to room 6, where Nathan Croft, the class clown before all this, was sitting on his bed, knees together, eyes locked on the wall. Hale sat across from him. "Nathan," he said gently, "I just want to know what happened. Anything. You don't have to say much." "Nothing." The silence stretched. Then Nathan turned slowly, his lips barely parting. "They said we'd forget, but I didn't. I remember everything." Hale froze. "What do you remember?" Nathan's fingers twitched. His lips moved again. They weren't supposed to leave it unlocked. "Who?" But Nathan was done talking. He laid back, pulled the blanket over his face, and didn't say another word for the rest of the night. By the next morning, the hospital was in chaos. Room 2 was empty. Emma Lung, one of the quieter girls in class, had vanished. Her bed was cold, no broken glass, no open window. The door had been locked from the outside. Security footage showed nothing, just a blank stretch from 2:43 a.m. to 2:51 a.m. 8 minutes gone. She wasn't found in the hospital or the street or the woods nearby. She just disappeared again. And this time she wasn't coming back. The incident set off alarms. The hospital tightened security. No more visits, no more interviews. The remaining 31 students were moved to an undisclosed location, guarded and isolated. Still, the public wanted answers. Reporters swarmed the school, the hospital, even the homes of the missing kids' families. Theories exploded online. Secret government testing, a cult operating out of the Pacific Northwest, even a freak case of mass hypnosis. But no one had any proof. That didn't stop people from panicking. Within days, dozens of parents pulled their kids out of East Fallridge High. Some families moved out of the town entirely. Local news began referring to the students as the Fallridge 32. Grocery stores had empty shelves. People were scared. And Hale, he kept digging. He started with the bus. After it was towed, it sat in a locked police lot for weeks. It looked ordinary, clean, untouched. But Hale asked for a private look. The seats were fine. The driver's side was fine. No blood, no signs of a struggle. But in the back, row 12, he found something the others missed. A folded piece of chewing gum wrapper tucked into the seat seam. Someone had written on the foil. The writing was shaky, like it was done in a rush. It said, "Turn the page. If you don't see it, you're already too late." Hale held onto it, didn't report it, didn't tell anyone. He didn't know what it meant, but it felt like a clue. A warning. A piece of something bigger. Then came a second break. A delivery driver named Miles Jensen came forward on day 14 with a strange story. 5 weeks earlier, on the exact day the students vanished, he had delivered a sealed shipping container to a warehouse outside Linemore. The job was routine. No special paperwork, no unusual instructions. He dropped it off and left. But now, seeing the news, he realized it was the same container the kids were found in. Miles swore it was empty when he delivered it. He even had paperwork to prove the weight was normal, too light to have 33 people inside. That's when Hale's mind started turning in circles. If the kids weren't in the container when it was delivered, when were they put inside? And by who? 2 days later, Dr. Mendez contacted Hale in a panic. "I need to show you something," he said. He had been analyzing brain scans of the survivors. They all showed something strange, patterns in the prefrontal cortex, something Mendez had never seen before. Like faint scars, not physical damage, but something more behavioral. Like they were forced to forget, he said. Mendez wasn't a conspiracy guy. He was calm, focused. But now, his hands were shaking. They didn't just go missing, Marcus. Someone reprogrammed them. As Hale stared at the brain scans, his phone buzzed. It was an unknown number, he answered. A voice spoke quickly, urgently. It was a whisper male. "You're asking too many questions. Walk away, detective." Then the line went dead. Detective Marcus Hale didn't scare easily. He dealt with gang busts, kidnappings, and cold cases that still haunted his nights. But that phone call shook him in a way nothing else had. It wasn't just the voice. It was the fact that the caller knew exactly what Hale was doing and when. Someone was watching him. He stood alone in his living room, phone still in hand, thoughts racing. Should he go public? Tell the chief? Or was that exactly what they wanted him to do? To panic? To stop? Instead, he did what he always did when things got hard. He worked harder. At 6 o'clock the next morning, Hale drove to a contact in Portland, someone he'd helped years ago on a trafficking case, an old dock supervisor named Dale Riker. Dale wasn't clean. He had a history of shady deals and questionable shipments, but he owed Hale a favor, and he had eyes on the port manifests that came in and out of Linemore. Over black coffee and a cracked plastic table, Dale slid him a file. "This isn't public," he said, "and if you tell anyone I gave you this, I'll say you're lying." The file contained a log for incoming containers 5 weeks ago, the day the students vanished. 2 containers had arrived in Linemore that weren't listed in the federal system. No origin, no inspection, just quietly dropped off by a private truck from a now-dissolved company based in Nevada. One of them was the container the students were found in. The other, still missing. Meanwhile, across town, things were starting to get worse. Another student went missing. This time it was Calvin Marsh, the tall, lanky football kid who had barely spoken since being rescued. He had been transferred to a secure psychiatric facility 3 days earlier. Cameras showed him walking to the bathroom at 3:12 a.m., but he never came back out. The staff checked the bathroom. Empty, his bed undisturbed, his door still locked, just like Emma Leung. He had disappeared again. That same morning, Hale got a knock at his door. It was Claire Bennett's father, Martin. He looked exhausted, sunken eyes, twitchy fingers. He wasn't there to yell. He wasn't angry. He was terrified. "She's talking again," he said. "But it's strange." Hale followed him to their home. Claire sat on her bed, arms wrapped around her legs. She rocked gently, her eyes fixed on the corner of the room. She didn't look up when Hale entered. He sat beside her. "Claire, it's me again. You remember?" No response. "I need to know what happened, please." Her lips parted. "They called it the process," she whispered. Hale leaned closer. "They asked questions. All day, every day. They didn't let us sleep. If you said the wrong thing, they'd play it back to you, over and over. You couldn't close your eyes. The lights stayed on." Her voice dropped lower. There was no clock, no sun, no sound from outside. "Who are they?" Hale asked. But Claire just shook her head. "They wore masks. No names, just numbers. They said we'd go back home when we broke properly." "What does that mean, broke?" Her voice cracked. "When you couldn't tell what was real anymore." That night, Hale sat in his car, notebook in hand. Claire's words rang in his head. The process. Broke properly, no sun, no sleep. This wasn't some random kidnapping. This was controlled, organized, funded. He looked at the container manifest again. 2 containers, one recovered, one still missing. He needed to find it. The next day, he returned to the industrial park where the container had been found. Overgrown, quiet, fenced off. He wandered around the site, peering into old storage lots, rusted crates, and piles of debris. Then he saw it, a slab of concrete behind the largest warehouse. It didn't match the rest of the floor, lighter, newer. Recent, he crouched down, knocked on it. Hollow, something was buried under there. Hale called in a favor with a friend in construction. That night, under the cover of darkness, they brought a drill and jackhammer. It was risky, illegal even, but Hale didn't care anymore. He needed answers. They broke through the slab in less than an hour. Underneath was a trapdoor, metal, locked from the outside. Hale's heart raced. With a crowbar and brute force, they pried it open. It creaked like something ancient. Cold air rushed up. A ladder led down into darkness. They climbed down, Hale first, flashlight trembling in his hand. The room beneath was tight and windowless. The walls were bare concrete, no furniture. Just a single chair in the middle, and a camera bolted to the ceiling, its red light blinking. On the wall was writing, rows and rows of questions written in black marker. "What is your name? How do you know it's your name? If your memories were fake, how would you know? What makes you think this world is real?" And beneath it all, one last message in bolder ink. "The second stage is in place." Hale backed away slowly. The place stank of fear. He took photos. All of it, then climbed back up. By the time he reached his car, 2 black SUVs were parked across the lot. They hadn't been there before. 4 men stepped out. Black suits, no badges. One walked toward him. "Detective Hale," the man said calmly. "We need you to come with us." Hale's eyes darted to his friend, already being surrounded by 2 of the men. "What's this about?" he asked. "We just have some questions." They weren't giving him a choice. Hale clenched his jaw and nodded. They blindfolded him, drove for what felt like hours. When they removed the blindfold, Hale was in a plain room with no windows. A man in a gray suit sat across from him, folder in hand. "You've been poking around," the man said. "I'm a detective, that's my job." "No, Mr. Hale," he replied. "Your job was to drop this after the kids were found. But you didn't. Now people are asking the wrong questions." The man opened the folder. Inside were photos of Hale, taken in secret. At home, at the hospital, at the warehouse. "This stops now," Hale sat quietly, then leaned forward. "Who are you?" The man gave a small smile. "You'll find out soon enough. But for now, here's your warning. If you care about anyone back in Fall Ridge, you'll walk away." He closed the folder and stood. Before we drop you off, let me ask one question. Just one. He looked Hale in the eyes. If you found out the truth, what would you even do with it? Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today and what time you are currently watching this video. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. Detective Marcus Hale was dropped off at the edge of town just after 4 a.m. No explanation, no ID on the men who had taken him, no name for the building he was held in. Just a silent drive back in one of the black SUVs and a cold command before they left. Stay out of this. But Hale never did know when to quit. He stood alone under the flickering streetlight, fists clenched, a storm building inside him. They had just confirmed what he suspected all along. This wasn't random. It wasn't chaos. It was planned, structured, and protected by people with the power to make others disappear. He drove straight home, locked the doors, and began backing up every file he had. If something happened to him, someone had to know what was going on. Back at the Bennett house, Claire had changed. She was no longer curled up in her bed like before. She sat upright now, alert, but she still wouldn't eat unless someone reminded her. She didn't ask about school or her friends or what year it was. It was like time had stopped for her at the moment they vanished. Her father said she woke up screaming twice that week. Same phrase each time, "Don't let the light in." He didn't understand what it meant. Neither did Hale. But it matched what Nathan and others had said about lights, about not sleeping, about some kind of watching. Still, it wasn't magic or curses. Hale didn't believe in that. No, this was human, cold, precise human cruelty. Hale returned to the trapdoor 2 nights later, alone this time. He had to go back. Something about that room below, the writing on the wall, the camera, felt incomplete, like he had only scratched the surface. But when he arrived at the warehouse, it was gone, not the building, not the slab. The entire warehouse had been reduced to rubble. Demolished overnight, fresh dirt covered the area, tire tracks everywhere. The whole place had been leveled and flattened like it never existed. No warning, no construction signs. Just gone. Hale's chest tightened. They were cleaning up, erasing pieces of the truth before he could get to them. He drove straight to city records, asked about the warehouse demolition. The clerk on duty raised an eyebrow. What warehouse? No records. No permits. Nothing. That same week, the Marsh family received a letter. There was no return address, no stamp, just a plain envelope tucked under their front door. Inside was a single photo. It showed Calvin Marsh standing on a roadside wearing the same clothes he had on the night he vanished. He was staring at the camera, expression blank. Behind him was a white van with its rear doors open. No note, no explanation, just a small number printed in the bottom right corner. 2 of 7. Hale rushed to examine it. It was real, no signs of editing, no Photoshop tricks. But the photo's details raised more questions than answers. The trees in the background didn't match anywhere in Oregon. The van's license plate was scratched out, and Calvin's face, though clear, looked different. Not older, not injured, just empty, like he wasn't really there. The FBI got involved again after the photo went public, but their press release was generic. "We are pursuing all leads. We are in contact with the Marsh family. No cause for alarm." Then they shut down communication with local law enforcement entirely. Hale knew what that meant. They were trying to control the story. Again. Meanwhile, something else was happening in town. More people were being watched. One afternoon, a retired teacher, Miss Pauline Richter, called Hale, saying she saw a man standing across the street from her house every night at 3 a.m. Same time, same spot, never moved. She tried yelling once. The man didn't flinch. But the next night, he was gone, and so was her cat. Windows locked, doors locked. The cat was never found. Hale wrote it down. It seemed strange, but not impossible. Maybe a warning, maybe fear was the point. By the end of the month, 5 families of the original 32 students had packed up and left Fallridge entirely. They left behind jobs, homes, even close relatives. No interviews, no statements, just a quiet exit. And Hale couldn't blame them. He was getting close, and whatever was behind all this, they knew it. Still, there were new leads to chase. One came from an unlikely source. A journalist named Tyler Quinn from a small online blog in Seattle contacted Hale after reading his name in a leaked report. "I know about the containers," she said. "I've been following similar cases for years." Tyla told Hale about two other incidents, one in 1983, another in 2001. Both involved small groups of people, students, workers, who vanished during routine outings, only to reappear weeks later in locked containers. Both times they were unresponsive. Both times they had no memory or refused to talk. And both times the containers were traced back to a shell company that no longer existed. She gave Hale a name, Horizon West Logistics. It was the same fake company from Dale Riker's manifest file. That night, Hale broke into an old records storage unit in Linemore, where paper shipping records were kept from before digital storage. He searched for hours, row after row of faded files, outdated logs, coffee-stained binders. Finally, he found it, a thin folder labeled HWL Transport April-May 1995. Inside, 2 pages. One listed the shipment ID of the container that arrived the day the kids went missing. The second was a manifest for a second container, same date, different ID. Destination, undisclosed facility, route V. No address, no coordinates, no contact, but scrawled in handwriting across the bottom of the second page. "Do not open until process completes." Hale scanned the document, sent a copy to Tyla Quinn, burned the original. He couldn't risk it falling into the wrong hands. His next goal was clear: find out what route V was, and find that second container, wherever it had gone. But before he could do that, he got a call from the police station. One of the remaining students, Ryan Lewis, had escaped from the secure facility, and this time he left behind something no one expected. A map drawn in pencil, shaky but clear. It showed a stretch of land west of Linemore. Deep woods, no trails, nothing marked, except for one tiny red square at the center. Beneath it, just 2 words: "We remember." The hand-drawn map left behind by Ryan Lewis was the first real breadcrumb Hale had in days. It was messy, drawn in pencil, but the message beneath it, "We remember," stood out more than anything else. Most of the students had barely spoken since being found. Why now? Why him? And what exactly did they remember? Hale scanned the map into his laptop, matched the area with Google satellite images, and quickly found the stretch of forest. It was northwest of Linemore, near the dead end of a long-forgotten logging road. No trails, no buildings, no cell phone service. It was exactly the kind of place people could hide something, or someone. At 4:32 a.m., Hale packed his truck. A change of clothes, water, flashlight, satellite phone, notebook, loaded Glock, and a printed copy of the second shipping manifest from the Horizon West Logistics file. He didn't tell anyone, not the department, not even Tyla Quinn. This had to be done quietly. He didn't trust anyone anymore. He arrived at the edge of the woods just after sunrise. The road was rough, the trees dense. Branches clawed at his windshield. The air was still, heavy with fog. Hale parked his truck behind a thick patch of brush and started on foot. For the first 2 hours, he followed the landmarks sketched on Ryan's map: a split oak tree, a narrow creek, a rocky slope. Every few minutes, he stopped and listened. Nothing but birds, but the deeper he went, the quieter it got, until there was nothing at all. By hour 3, Hale saw something through the trees. A clearing. At the center of it was a rusted metal structure, half buried in the ground, covered with vines and dirt. He stepped closer. It was a container. The second one. The ID number on the side matched the second entry in the manifest from 1995. He circled it slowly. Unlike the first container, this one wasn't sealed. The doors hung slightly open. Inside, it was dark. The floor covered in old leaves and damp rust. A table sat in the middle, metal and bolted to the floor. Straps were attached to it, leather, frayed, stained with something brown. Along the walls were hooks and a camera, exactly like the first container's setup, but colder. This one hadn't been used to hold people quietly. This was for something else. Hale's stomach twisted. He pulled out his phone. No signal? He took photos, every angle, every corner. Then he noticed the hatch. At the far end of the container was a small door set into the floor, like a crawl space. It was locked from the outside. With a hard yank and a grunt, Hale broke the latch. He shined his flashlight inside. What he saw made his blood run cold. A notebook and a jacket. He climbed down into the crawl space. The air was stale, heavy. The notebook had a torn cover, its pages filled with shaky handwriting. The first page read, "This is not memory loss, it's memory control." Each page after that was filled with notes, dates, times repetitions. Day 3, woke up with different name written on my hand. Not my name. Day 7, they play same question 100x. If the world ended yesterday, how would you know? Day 12, white noise, high-pitched. Makes it hard to think straight. When you resist, they restart. Whoever wrote it was keeping track of time, but eventually the entries became scattered, incoherent. The last line was written in all caps. If you found this, they never finished. Run. Suddenly, Hale heard something outside. Crunching, footsteps. He snapped the notebook shut, climbed out of the hatch, and slid behind the open container doors, holding his breath. The footsteps grew closer, then a voice. Still fresh, couldn't have been long ago. 2 men appeared in the clearing, dressed in plain dark clothes, one holding a walkie. They scanned the area like they'd done it 100 times. Hale recognized them. They were the same men from the black SUVs. He waited, barely breathing. One of them stepped into the container. Hale pressed against the wall, silent, gun in hand. "Nothing down here," the man called back after a minute. The other replied, "Let's torch it. No reason to keep this one." They poured something into the container, smelled like gasoline. Hale's eyes widened. They were going to burn it with him inside. The moment they turned their backs, Hale made his move. He stepped out, fast and low. One swift blow to the back of the first man's head, he dropped. The other turned, shocked, but not fast enough. Hale raised his gun. "Drop it." The second man froze, then slowly dropped his walkie. "What is this place?" Hale growled. The man gave a small smile. "Too late, detective. You've seen it now." "Who are you?" "I'm the cleanup crew." Hale zip-tied him to a nearby tree, grabbed the walkie, and took the other man's keys and ID. The ID wasn't real, just a fake name and badge number. But the walkie was live. It buzzed to life. "Unit 6, do you copy?" "Status on Container V." Hale clicked the button. "Unit 6 here. All clear. Proceeding with Phase 3. He shut it off and ran. Back at his truck, Hale threw the notebook into his glove box and hit the gas. He didn't know how long he had. Minutes, maybe. He didn't head home. He drove straight to Tyler Quinn's apartment in Seattle. She opened the door, eyes wide. "I found the second container," he said breathlessly. "And we're not dealing with a kidnapping. This was testing, behavior control, isolation, conditioning, possibly mind rewriting." Tyler's jaw dropped. Jesus, someone out there is training people to forget. And remember, on command. She stepped back and let him in. "I need your help," he said. "We expose this together, or we're both dead." That night, they scanned every page of the notebook, paired it with the files Hale had, cross-referenced every code, container ID, name. Tyler said quietly, "This goes higher than local law enforcement. This is beyond FBI, we're talking deep operations, military contractors, maybe even government black sites." Hale nodded. "Then we take it higher." They contacted a senator known for exposing federal abuse cases. "Send everything. Photos, maps, notes, voice recordings." Then they waited. But they weren't fast enough. 2 nights later, Tyler's apartment was broken into. Everything was taken, and she was gone. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today and what time you are currently watching this video. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. Detective Marcus Hale sat in his parked car outside a closed diner 30 miles outside Seattle. His hands trembled as he stared at the empty passenger seat, where Tyler Quinn had been just 24 hours earlier. Now she was missing, no signs of forced entry. Her apartment was wiped clean, laptop gone, backup drives gone, her phone still ringing but no answer, no pings on the GPS. The only sign left behind was her notebook, one she'd always carried with her. It had been shredded and left on her bed like a warning. Hale didn't need more proof. Someone had reached her first. And they were getting closer to him too. He checked into a roadside motel under a fake name. Used cash covered his tracks. Every hour he switched phones, burner to burner. He knew the playbook by now. He wasn't trying to outrun them, just stay alive long enough to finish what he started. There was one move left, find Ryan Lewis. The map the boy had drawn, it wasn't just directions. It was a memory, a clue only someone who'd been there could create. Hale was sure now. Ryan remembered something the others didn't, and maybe that was why he ran. Back at Fall Ridge, Hale reconnected with Dr. Louis Mendez. Mendez was nervous, pale. He hadn't heard from Tyla either and feared the worst. He had news of his own. 4 more students had gone silent. They weren't speaking, eating, or sleeping. Just existing. Eyes fixed ahead like they were waiting for something. Their brain scans, Mendez whispered, sliding them across the table, have changed again. The scans showed something strange. Sections of the brain usually active during dreams were now active while they were awake. But none of them were dreaming. Mendez leaned in. It's like they're living in a loop they can't escape, Hale replied, or being kept in one. They dug deeper into Horizon West logistics. After hours of digging through obscure company registries and abandoned websites, Mendez found something, a shell company that used to rent warehouses in 5 different states, one of which was just across the state line in Idaho. The address was no longer listed, but archived photos showed a tall, gray facility surrounded by fences and security cameras. Hale checked the GPS coordinates. Same area Ryan had circled on the back of the map. A perfect match. By noon the next day, Hale was on the road again. He didn't tell anyone where he was going, not even Mendez. The fewer people who knew, the better. He reached the Idaho facility after sunset. The place looked empty from a distance, but Hale knew better. He parked half a mile away and hiked the rest through thick brush. Moved quietly, slowly. The warehouse sat at the bottom of a dirt hill, surrounded by floodlights and a chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. There were cameras, at least 6, maybe more. But Hale had timed his approach between the camera rotations, thanks to time-lapse footage he'd reviewed earlier. This wasn't just a guess anymore. This was a plan. He cut the fence at the far corner and slipped inside. The warehouse was larger than he expected. 2 floors, 1 loading dock, no windows. He crept along the side wall, reached a side door, and picked the lock in less than a minute. Inside, cold metal walls, long corridors, and rows of steel doors, each marked only with numbers. A familiar setup, exactly like what Claire had described. A light above one door flickered. Room 11. He crept closer. Inside, through a narrow viewing slit, he saw a boy, pale, thin, curled in a chair, Ryan Lewis, alive. Hale picked the lock, stepped inside, and closed the door behind him. Ryan looked up. His face twitched like he was unsure if what he saw was real. "Ryan," Hale said calmly, "it's me. Detective Hale. I need you to come with me." Ryan's voice was hoarse. "They said I'd forget again. That none of it mattered. What do you remember?" Ryan's eyes went wide, the walls, the light that never went off, the questions, and the second room, the one where they watched us. "Who watched you?" He shook his head. People in black coats, no faces, just clipboards. They'd say things like repeat cycle or subject drift. Sometimes they made us talk to mirrors that weren't mirrors. "Where's the second room now?" Ryan pointed to the floor. Below us, suddenly voices echoed in the hallway. Footsteps. Close, Hale grabbed Ryan and pulled him into the hallway just as 2 men turned the corner. The chase began. Hale ran hard, dragging Ryan behind him, cutting through doors and weaving through corridors. They ducked into a control room filled with monitors, switches, and stacks of files. He slammed the door shut, locked it, and scanned the room for anything useful. One monitor showed a live feed of room 11, already empty. Another showed a room beneath the warehouse, a lab-like space with chairs, wires, and blinking monitors. That had to be the second room. He grabbed a folder marked Phase 4, Re-Entry Assessment. Inside were files, each page labeled with student names and progress notes. Some had red stamps, failed. Others cleared. Ryan's page was stamped, pending, mild resistance, schedule reset. Suddenly, a loudspeaker crackled. A voice filled the hallway outside. "Detective Hale, you are trespassing on federal property. Surrender immediately." He ignored it. Hale snapped pictures of everything, then smashed the backup drives on the desk, grabbed Ryan's file, and kicked open the back exit. Sirens howled, floodlights turned on. Guards gave chase, but Hale had come prepared. He'd parked a stolen maintenance van 2 streets down. When they reached it, he shoved Ryan inside, floored the gas, and didn't stop for 40 miles. Back at the motel, Ryan collapsed on the bed. Hale locked every bolt and pulled the shades. He uploaded all the documents to 3 cloud drives under aliases. He had everything backed up in 5 places. He looked at Ryan. "You're safe now," he said. Ryan didn't reply, just stared at the wall, then finally spoke. "They're not finished, you know." "Who?" Ryan whispered. "The ones who started this 30 years ago." Marcus Hale didn't sleep that night. He sat on the motel bed, laptop open, his gun beside him, and Ryan Lewis curled up under the covers, finally resting after who knows how many sleepless days. Hale's eyes scanned each document again, reading every disturbing line. Student names, schedules, notes like, Subject 14 showed strong internal resistance. Subject 28 began to question reality. Breakdown not achieved. Initiate Phase 2 memory reset. Everything pointed back to one thing. This was never a kidnapping. It was a program built to erase and rebuild minds. Using kids, but why? And who was behind it? By morning, Ryan woke up gasping, clutching his chest like he'd been held underwater. Hale handed him a glass of water. Ryan drank in silence, then reached into his pocket and pulled something out. A small torn photograph. It was a class picture. The original one from 1995. 32 smiling students, 1 teacher. But Hale noticed something strange. In the back row was a man standing off to the side, wearing sunglasses, hands behind his back. He didn't belong. "Who's that?" Hale asked. Ryan stared at the photo. He was the one they all answered to. The others called him Director Vernon. The name meant nothing to Hale. He ran it through every law enforcement database. Nothing. No match in public records, birth certificates, education, or even government files. But when he searched the Horizon West Logistics Archive, a hit came back. One document, an internal memo from 1993. Effective immediately, all psychological conditioning protocols for Class Unit Beta 1 will report directly to Director Vernon. Subject group has been transported. Target completion date, May 15th, 1995. May 15th, 1995. Exactly the day the class disappeared. And the program's final phase, 5 weeks. Exactly how long they were gone. Hale leaned back. They had been part of this since the beginning. The whole class, taken not for ransom, not for torture, but for study, conditioned, tested, and when it failed or someone fought back, the container was simply sealed and returned. So why bring them back? Why let them live? He looked at Ryan again. You weren't just taken, you were part of something much bigger. Ryan nodded slowly. They wanted to make us forget, so they could try again, but not all of us forgot. Hale knew he had to act fast. The facility in Idaho was already cleaned up. Tyler Quinn was still missing. And once the people behind this learned what he'd taken, he'd be next. He needed to make the truth public, loud, undeniable, and irreversible. He uploaded the files to 4 major news agencies using a secure drop: CNN, Reuters, The Guardian, and The New York Times. Along with the class list, the documents, and video from inside the second container. But he didn't stop there. He also sent everything to a federal oversight committee tied to the Department of Defense, knowing full well it would stir chaos. And then one last thing, he booked a press conference. Anonymous tip, local news station. Midnight slot, low audience, but it would air. He would speak the truth publicly. That night, Hale and Ryan drove back to Linemore. They passed the school, now quiet, overgrown, forgotten. They walked to the old playground. The metal swing set squeaked in the wind. Graffiti lined the back walls, but Hale could still picture it, kids laughing, running, before everything went dark. Ryan suddenly turned to him. They'll try to bury this, like they buried us. Hale nodded. Let them try. The press conference aired live on a small Oregon station. Hale wore a baseball cap, face half in shadow. He told everything. The containers, the memory control program, the names of the students, the footage from the lab, the fake companies. He held up Ryan's notebook, and he said the words that shook anyone watching. This happened, and it could happen again. The fallout was instant. Within 48 hours, 3 major networks picked up the story. Within a week, national media exploded. Protests erupted. Parents of the original 32 students came forward. Some confirmed their children had always acted strange since they returned, but were told to keep quiet or they'd lose federal assistance. A congressional hearing was launched. The Department of Defense denied involvement. The FBI refused to comment, but one anonymous agent leaked a name to a major paper, Project Learning Curve, a program meant to study extreme environmental reconditioning and belief rewiring. Unofficially shut down in 1996. Officially, it never existed. Hale was brought in for testimony under protection. Ryan Lewis was placed with extended family outside Oregon, far away from the noise. But not everyone was lucky. Tyler Quinn's body was never found. 4 students were readmitted to psychiatric facilities when they began to repeat phrases they hadn't used in years. And the man known as Director Vernon vanished, no trace, no fingerprints. Not even on the class photo. 30 years after it began, the truth came out. An entire class taken, conditioned, returned, only to be forgotten again. But not this time, because Detective Hale refused to let it go. A year later, Hale received a package, no return address. Inside, a single flash drive and a note. Only 1 phase completed, 6 more waiting. The file on the drive, a video, newer, inside another shipping container. But this time, it wasn't children. It was soldiers. If you like this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, in order to strengthen our community, let us know in the comments where you are watching from and what time you are currently watching this video.